My dear friends, I mean that, every word. I normally don't say that to journalists and editors and broadcasters. Well, recently I have. And I want to recognize all of you, and especially Ambassador David Friedman, the United States Ambassador to Israel, a great, great emissary and a champion of our alliance. I want to welcome you to Jerusalem, the eternal united capital of Israel. You know, the American embassy is close by. It's actually within walking distance. And it's a result of a bold and historic decision by President Trump to recognize Israel, or recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and to move the U.S. Embassy here. I think he deserves a tremendous applause for a tremendous act. President Trump corrected a historic wrong. I mean, the idea that we are not attached to Jerusalem, this unbelievable fiasco that you see in the UN institutions, resolutions, and UNESCO. We are not connected to Jerusalem, right? Right? Take a shovel, put it in the ground, see what you get. What do you get? Palestinian artifacts? We just found out what we got. 2,000 years ago, somebody built a little column, and we just found it. And what does it say in Hebrew? What does it say? It says, it doesn't say Jerusalem, it says Yerushalayim. You know, the way we spell it. We're not connected to Jerusalem. Where did they build the temple? In Nepal? You know, where did Jesus overturn the money changers' tables? Where? In Tibet? Where? And where did Solomon build his temple? Right here. So this attempt to distort history and falsify history vis-a-vis Jerusalem and vis-a-vis our connection to this land is a terrific injustice to the tribulations of the Jewish people that have made a journey that is unsurpassed by any other people. I mean, we have weathered the greatest catastrophes, from the destruction of the Second Temple right down to the Holocaust. We suffered as no people suffered, and we never lost sight of returning to Zion. Zion is right here, Mount Zion. Returning to Jerusalem, returning to Judea, returning to Samaria. This is our land. We have come back to it, and we will stay here forever. You can clap. You can applaud. Maybe we should remind them where the name Jews comes from. You know where it comes from. Yeah? Judea, that's correct. Judea. You know where the Good Samaritan name comes from? Samaria, right. That was an adjunct. These are cousins of ours. There is, it's not surprising that those who falsify ancient history also falsify recent history. And when it comes to the quest for peace, there is no distortion that Israel doesn't want peace. We've wanted peace from day one because we know the agony of war. I know the agony of war. We've lost loved ones. We've been in constant battles from day one. There is no country that wants peace, prays for peace, yearns for peace more than the Jewish people of Israel. And it's important to say this at every opportunity. On the other hand, look at our neighbors. Look at what President Abbas is doing. I mean, he's rewarding terrorists. Pay for slay. The more they kill, the more they get paid. He has on his law books a law that says that if you sell land to Jews, you'll be executed. Some peace and some coexistence. I think people have to say the truth. You are ambassadors of truth. You're not merely the greatest ambassadors that Israel has around the world. You're champions of truth. And if there's one thing that I can ask you to do, it's to tell the truth. Tell the truth about our history. Tell the truth about our present. Tell the truth about who wants peace and who doesn't want peace. And I think that you can also tell the truth about something else. Israel is a robust democracy. It supports and protects the rights of all, the rights of Jews, Christians, Muslims, of all. And we are the only ones who do so in a very broad radius. I think there's something unusual for Christians because Israel is the only country in the Middle East where the Christian community thrives and grows. And that is also applicable to what happened in the Palestinian Authority areas. You know the town of Bethlehem? Yes. You have a connection to it. We all do. And among other things, we have a connection through King David, the story of Ruth, as you know, but also the story of Jesus. Now, Bethlehem had, when we handed Bethlehem over to the Palestinian Authority, its Christian population was roughly 80%. You know what it is now? It's about 20%. And that change happened because in the Palestinian Authority areas, as well as throughout the Middle East, Christians are being constricted, they're being pressured. Often they're being persecuted. Israel is the one country that protects the human rights of all. We protect the religious sites of all. We don't just protect Christian religious side, we protect Christian people. Christians should enjoy all the freedom to worship as they please in the Middle East and anywhere else. And the only place in the Middle East where they can do so is Israel. We have no better friends in the world than our Christian friends. And I take this opportunity to thank you for your steadfast support. You are standing up for Israel and you're standing up for the truth, and we stand up for you. Now I'm standing up and you can ask me all the questions you want in the next 15 minutes.
Can you try to help us understand why Palestinian American Lara Al-Qassam hasn't been really allowed to enter Israel? Her lawyers say that she is no longer a BDS activist. She has retracted her time. Should we not encourage some people who are growing in their opinion of Israel? She's spending thousands of dollars to study at Hebrew University.
Would that it were true. I don't know. But every country and every democracy, and many democracies, have special arrangements where they decide who to let in and who not to let in. If you come in and you're virulently against America and you try to come into the United States, there's a good chance you won't be let in if people know that in advance. That's also true of many of the European democracies. It's true of the democracy called Israel.
This is specifically, though, about the new BDS law, which some people are saying is not being applied properly in this case.
I trust that Minister Erdan has examined that and looked into it. It's under the decision now of the Israeli Supreme Court, so I'm not going to get into that. And they'll decide whether they handle it or not. If they don't handle it, if they handle it, we'll see how it develops. If they don't handle it, she'll be deported.
What would you tell the atheists around the world? Why should they support Israel?
I would tell people everywhere, and especially people in free nations, that Israel is the vanguard of freedom in the heart of the Middle East. We are protecting the freedom of the world because without Israel, radical Islamic terrorism, radical Islam would already overrun the Middle East easily. Israel not only protects itself, but it also protects the neighborhood, and I won't go into details about that. But who's blocking, who's fighting right now the Iranian takeover of Syria? Who's doing it? Israel is doing it. And who's fighting Daesh all over the place? Israel must have, in the last 3 years, must have stopped at least 40 major terrorist attacks by Daesh through the entire world. Planes could have been shot down from the skies. Major terrorist attacks in the cities of Europe and elsewhere, and in Asia, and in Africa. Israel is prevented with superb intelligence. So I would say Israel is the protector of freedom and the defender against radical Islam, and all free peoples should have an interest in that. That's why you should support Israel. It's the right thing to do.
You mentioned earlier the Iranian threat to Israel, which we all know very well. Can you talk a bit more about the Iranian threat to the West, to America, to France? We just had an assassination plot that France broke up, but Iran refers to America as the Great Satan. Can you talk more about that threat to the West posed by the Iranian regime?
Well, just a few weeks ago, they tried to arrange a terrorist plot not only in Europe, they tried to do so in the United States. They were prevented. Iran itself, Iran's state apparatus. So it's setting up these terror cells throughout the world. You just have them, two of them uncovered, but we know of dozens and dozens throughout the world. Look, Iran, Henry Kissinger said Iran has to choose between being a country and being a cause. So far it chooses to be a cause, and the cause is a terrible cause. It's the domination of the world to its brand of radical Islam. This is what they believe. Not only the mullahs and the ayatollahs, but also their chief generals. And they export the revolution. What does that mean? It means converting people by force of arms to their version of Islam. And the first casualties are other Muslims, Arabs, and the second casualties are everyone else. When they look at the world and they look at the Middle East, they say, what's the toughest knot to crack? It's Israel. But we are considered in their minds, as you say, the small Satan. Your America is the great Satan. I hope I don't embarrass my European friends and I say, you're a middle-sized Satan. But in fact, this is what Iran plans to do. And the worst thing about it is that they actually plan to achieve this with a nuclear arsenal that the horrible Iran deal would have given them. It would have given them access to having nuclear weapons. It didn't deal at all with ballistic missiles, so they'd have the means to deliver these nuclear weapons to a theater near you in the United States or anywhere else, okay? And it didn't limit them in other ways. So effectively, it said to them, look, here's what this deal was. You have to understand why I oppose it. The deal essentially said that if Iran suspends enrichment of enough uranium for a single bomb, then it can have unlimited enrichment of uranium for 100 bombs, 200 bombs, unlimited number, within a few years. It's about 7 years from now. In other words, it gave them a license to produce the most difficult component of making atomic bombs, which is enriched uranium, okay? And in addition to that, it gave them a lot of money for that. And the money, billions and billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in credits and investments, okay? They didn't use to improve the Iranian economy. They used it to expand their Islamist Iranian empire. So they expanded into Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and so on. And they're right next to our border right now. It didn't work out the way the deal's promoters believed. I opposed that deal from the start. I went to the U.S. Congress because this deal threatened the future of the state of Israel. It was my obligation to defend the Jewish state because history and God will not give us another opportunity. This is it. But I also think that it threatens the Middle East and the entire world. It definitely threatens the great Satan, the United States. They chanted death to America. Death to Israel too, but death to America. Don't give these people nuclear weapons. Don't let them form an empire. Don't give them ballistic missiles. Don't give them the ammunition to destroy us. And I think that this is something that is important for every American. I think it's important for the entire world. And President Trump should be congratulated for pulling out of that bad deal and restoring sanctions. Yeah.
May I, Prime Minister, one simple question. You mentioned right now B'Tselem, and my question would be that for many years I was a journalist in Europe, and I have seen anti-Semitism almost normal. Then I went to the Arab world in order to be a diplomat. I've seen anti-Semitism again, criticism towards Israel, almost normal. But when you see anti-Semitism almost, and criticism towards Israel coming from Israel or from Jews, is it more difficult to handle? And how would you define a man, an Israeli, like the guy from B'Tselem, who's going to the UN to criticism our country, your country?
How do I define B'Tselem? A disgrace. That's how I define them.
The Palestinians claim this land as theirs. However, they show complete disregard for the land by sending terror balloons and kites into the land of Israel, destroying thousands of acres of territory, endangering citizens. You know, back where I come from in Mississippi, people don't understand that, how you can claim a piece of land and then destroy it. Is there any possible way to explain that?
Sure, because they don't want a state. They want to destroy a state. That's what they're really about. And I think that we have to expose it, and it's a tragedy. I mean, in the Palestinian Authority, they teach children, you know, from their mother's milk. They teach them that they have to destroy the state of Israel, you know, swamp the state of Israel with the descendants of Palestinian refugees, Jaffa, Akko, Haifa, and so on. They don't teach them coexistence. They don't teach them peace. I wish they did. By the way, if they taught them that, then they would go for peace. But if they tell them that the people who murder Israelis, like the horrible murder that they... Did you see this? Did you see this horrible thing? I spent on Thursday night, I went to visit two families. Just heart-wrenching. The first family was of Kim Yecheskel. Kim was a 29-year-old woman, beautiful outside, beautiful inside. Mother of a one-year-old baby. And she went to work in Ariel, in Balkan, which is right next to Ariel, in a plant that employs Israelis and Palestinians in coexistence. And this I was going to say animal, but I don't think animals have this kind of brutality. This horrible terrorist comes in, ties her hands, and shoots this young mother, cold blood, murders her. And then he murders another wonderful young man, Ziv Chachbi, the father of three, two twin boys, 7 years old, two twins, one boy, one girl, and one baby boy, 4 years old. And you see their life shattered completely. I talked to one of the twins, Adi. He's 7 years old. He's the chess champion of Rishon LeZion. You know, what do you say to a child like that? And he doesn't yet understand it. I said, okay, let's play a game of mental chess, which we started playing. He would beat me, by the way, I could see that. But I said I'd invite him. I invited him to the Prime Minister's residence. I'm going to have, you know, a few games with him. What do you say to these kids? What do you say to the wife? What do you say to the husband? What do you say to the parents there? Well, I'll tell you one thing I expected Abu Mazen to say. I expected him to condemn this barbarism. But we haven't heard a word from them. Not only do they not condemn it, they pay the families of this person. They pay this person. We'll catch him. We'll bring him to justice. But the greatest injustice is that they pay the murderers and they teach their children to follow the footsteps of these murderers. Well, if they're serious about peace, this has to stop. We want peace, we crave peace, but we want a real peace, not a fake peace, in which Israel makes these concessions to the terrorists who then use the territories that we give them to destroy our state. That is not peace. That's not something we'll do, I guarantee.